We are on the hour. I'm not sure if we want to give people a couple more minutes to log on.
I think you can go ahead.
Okay, sound good. I believe this is being recorded, so if you miss anything important, you can watch the recording afterwards. Hello, everybody. My name is Ian Baum. I'm a senior GitLab, senior build engineer here at GitLab. Today we are going to talk about GitLab QA. So the first and most important thing is, why do we need GitLab QA? We have plenty of unit and feature tests in GitLab itself, but they don't necessarily test GitLab's interaction with all of the external tools that it relies on, like the database or Redis or anything like that. So when we're writing tests where we're just testing the code, we aren't testing the code interaction. So we need something to kind of test the product as a whole, some integration tests that make sure everything is running as expected and behaving as expected, and that's something we don't necessarily get with the standard unit and feature tests. So with GitLab QA, it's an automated way of just kind of simulating user interaction with the GitLab instance, so we can make sure that when a user clicks on a button, everything is happening as we expect it to, and we can keep running this repeatedly. So as things change, we can see if old features break and new features are working as expected. So GitLab QA consists of two key parts. The first part is the tests themselves. These live in the GitLab CE and the GitLab EE projects. There's also some supporting libraries in there to kind of make it easy to write tests and automate behavior that people will be doing repeatedly. You want to check different tests and different arguments and different behaviors. So we want to make it as easy as possible to write simple tests so you can add more tests. And the second key component is the GitLab QA project itself. This is a separate project. This handles running the tests. You can run against a Docker instance, or you can run against an existing GitLab instance, and you use the GitLab QA project to handle the orchestration of talking to the instance, handling the login, and then running the tests against whatever instance you choose to. If you're curious about how the architecture works with that, Remy has put together a great architecture document. It is linked here in the slide, which should be available for everybody. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the GitLab QA project itself. QA project, like I said, it's a separate project. It handles running the tests against whatever instance you choose. If you want it to spin up an instance for you, it will do that in Docker, or you can point it to an existing instance and just give it the login information it needs to know, and it can take it from there. You can use this to test different running configurations. As we know, GitLab is very configurable. There's definitely a significant number of different configuration options you can change, so that just makes it a very complex product. So adding or removing a feature might work for one configuration and break it in another. So using GitLab QA, you can test all sorts of different configuration scenarios and make sure that they are all working as expected. It also lets you test different install paths. We can do a fresh install, spin up a fresh instance, ensure GitLab QA passes, and we could be happy there. It can also do an upgrade for you. So it'll do a fresh install, ensure GitLab QA passes, and then it'll upgrade the instance to a newer version and ensure that the GitLab QA still passes. They're even working on a CE to EE migration, so you can test installing CE, GitLab QA passes, and then converting that over to an EE instance and ensuring that GitLab QA is still in fact passing. This next part is the CE projects, the tests themselves. So each project you'll see contains a QA subdirectory. This contains all the library and tests themselves, so you can add the code there alongside while you're developing to ensure that as you're adding new features or fixing something, that QA is passing and working as you expect it to. The QA project does provide a few different objects that we can use. We can use this to interact and just kind of stimulate the user interaction, so we don't need to kind of write code from scratch for each test. So the three main objects for a QA test are page, scenario, and spec. A page is just a Ruby object. It represents a page in GitLab. It could be like a new project page or the group show page, something like that. Scenario is series of tasks and steps to represent an action you might take in GitLab, something like create a group or create a new repository or delete a user. And the spec is the code that actually just kind of calls the scenarios and pages, replicates a user behavior, and then ensures that the results are as we expect. So the developers, when you run QA, it calls the tests, or it's just in standard R specs, or it runs the specs, and then the specs themselves will handle loading up the appropriate scenarios, loading up the appropriate pages, interacting with that, and then you can use standard R spec expectations to ensure that everything is as you expect it to be. So we're going to walk through an example of creating the test for creating a new project. So this is the form for creating a new project. These are normally the fields you're going to care about. You want a name, you want a description usually, and there's going to be the create project button. Once the project's created, this is what you hope to see on the GitLab page to confirm that the project's created and it has the correct name description as you said it. So the first important thing here is the page itself that represents the new project page. We can see that in the class definition, module page, module project, class new. This is just representing a new project page. And then you'll see 4 methods in here. These are just different tasks that can be performed with respect to the new project page. In this instance, right now for this test, we just care about the bottom 3, choose name, add description, and create new project. They do what they say. So the choose name method will fill in the project name with the name that we provided. And you can see in the method there, it calls a fill in method. The first argument is the element ID. If you need to find an element ID in Chrome, you just right click on the element that you care about, and there will be an inspect option in the menu there. You click on that, it will bring up the developer tools, drop you into the HTML, and highlight the element that you are looking at. In Firefox, it's just called inspect element. So easy enough to find as well. And in there, what we're going to care about for the input boxes is we're looking for the ID. That is what the fill-in method was going to accept. And for the button, we care about the value. Now, all of this is using Capybara. This is a high-level DSL to kind of automate the interactions of a web page. It uses a different driver to actually kind of talk to there, but it provides you with a pretty high-level DSL, so you can easily automate interactions, and you don't have to worry about things like loading a page, then waiting for the page to load. You confirm that everything's there, and then everything like that. Capybara kind of takes care of all the heavy lifting for you, so you can just have methods like go to a page and fill in and click on, and you don't have to worry about anything else for that. The next step is going to be the scenario. So this is where we actually automate the tasks of loading the page, filling it in, and clicking on the create project button. So again, you're going to see the class definition at the top. This is just saying this is the scenario for creating a GitLab project. Every scenario has a perform method. This is required. This is what tells GitLab QA these are the steps needed in order to perform this scenario. So we'll highlight the 2 important key factors here in there. So the first thing the scenario does is does the group show perform? And so make sure that every run of GitLab QA there should be a namespace. The namespace is just going to be QA test with a timestamp by default. This is configurable. If it exists, it's going to go to that subgroup. If not, it's going to create a subgroup with that namespace name. And this just ensures that, say we're doing multiple QA runs against the same instance, unless there's an extreme coincidence, they should all have a unique name and they won't be creating projects or creating data that might conflict with another running instance. Once we're in that subgroup, we then go to the new project page by just calling page, go to new project. And then the next step, we assume that Capybara takes care of bringing us to the new project page, and won't move on to the next step until that is complete. And at that point in time, we do the project new, we perform project new. We choose a test namespace, we set the name, and we add a description, and then we click on the create new project button. And now finally, we have the specs themselves. First thing you'll see they do is they sign into GitLab using the page. And then from there, they call the project create perform scenario that we just talked about on the previous slide, sets the name to awesome project, sets a description to create awesome project. And then we call some standard expectations to make sure that that text exists. And as we jump back to the success page, you can see project awesome project was successfully created is there. That's the success banner. We see the name in the description, and we're looking for an empty repository. So, wrong page. Sorry about that. So we have, we're looking there. We see the success banner. We're checking for the description, and we're looking for the empty project. And we see all of those. If we didn't see empty project, that would be cause for concern. This would no longer be a new project if there was already code in there. So that's why we're checking for that. We'll drop into another example of this one also. This is the push test. This will give an example of how you can automate interacting with the Git repository as well, because this is something else we want to test. We don't only interact through the web interface. So the non-highlighted code is exactly the same as the other code we've already been looking at, so I don't need to go over that again. But if you see the highlighted code, we have the Git repository block there. We set the location by fetching it from the project show page. First, it looks for the HTTP location from the repository dropdown with the choose repository clone HTTP. And from there, if it can't find that, it uses the repository location method in order to fetch that. We then sign in using default credentials, and then we do the act. So the first thing we do is clone, then we set up our identity, we add a file, and we commit it, and we push it. And then you'll see on the block on the right, we can see then use the expectations that we expect the page to have the content readme.md, that's just file name, and then we're checking for the content.
So I just want to interject. This seems to be the most important differences right now from like our normal feature specs, because in our normal feature specs, we don't actually interact with the repository directly, right? We do some things behind the scenes. So this is kind of calls out the power of GitLab QA, because you actually can do stuff that you would normally do on the command line that we don't do in our normal specs. So just want to call that out.
Very good point. Thank you, Stan. So these were two basic examples. You can build on these, do more complex actions, and test more complex behaviors. I thought they were good basic examples, so you can see what we can do, and you can build from there. So from there, we want to learn how to actually run the test ourselves. So currently, it happens automatically whenever GitLab QA is updated. We run against the latest image in order to ensure everything is working. And then every time a developer clicks on the package builds in their feature branches in GitLab CE or EE, part of the package build is to run GitLab QA. So you can see the results there. I've linked to the documentation. If you don't already know how to manually build a package, we have documentation for that. And then I've linked to an example so you can see what the actual run looks like for running QA against your manual package. You can also run this manually. The GitLab QA can be installed through Ruby gems, so just gem install GitLab QA, and that will provide you with a command line utility that you can then use to spin up a new Docker instance, run QA against that. You can run it against an existing instance. You can run it against your GDK instance. So as you're developing, you can be running your tests to ensure that everything is working as expected or not expected. You can keep doing that and keep doing the iterative development to add new features and keep adding tests as you go. So now we're on to the future of GitLab QA. One of the key things is getting more scenarios, making it easier for you to write tests. Again, you don't need to redo all the integrations every time. The three big things that are being planned right now are LDAP integration. You should be able to test that new features don't break that, and you should be able to have low-level code to just interact and make sure that LDAP is working. We also want to test backup and restore. These are two things that are key workflows in the GitLab world. So as much as we can automate testing that would be great. And the other one is registry integration, another big feature. There are a lot more scenarios that are planned and in the pipeline. If you click on that link for more scenarios, that is to the GitLab QA issue queue, and with everything with the label new scenarios. You can see everything in there that is planned, and if you're feeling motivated, you can even add more scenarios yourself. Another thing that would like to be done is to run on merge requests automatically. Every time a merge request is submitted, pipeline would kick off. That would run GitLab QA against your merge requests, and the merge request would not merge until GitLab QA pass. One of the concerns with this is speed. We don't want it to take too long to run on top of the specs as well, so we want to make sure that GitLab QA can complete within a reasonable amount of time. So one thing that is being tested is running GitLab QA against a GDK instance in the CI. It's not known yet whether that is going to be feasible or not, so it's not guaranteed to be the workflow for that, but if that works fine, then we'll move forward with that. But in the long run, all merge requests will go through GitLab QA before they can be merged. We're even starting to run on staging and Canary during deploy. Right now, I believe it happened manually for the first time on this release, but the goal is to have it run automatically, and the deploy would not be able to progress to the next level until GitLab QA passes. And as we are betting big on Kubernetes, running GitLab QA on Kubernetes is another big feature that we would like to have working. There's a ticket there for using the Helm chart in order to run GitLab QA against Kubernetes. So once that is in place, that will be a big win there. That'll help us out greatly in getting the Helm chart working and ready for production. And finally, we need a lot more tests. There is no dedicated QA team at GitLab. Everybody who's currently working on GitLab QA is from different teams. They're just having the resources assigned to QA, but we need a lot more tests. So that's something, when you're adding new features to GitLab, you should be writing QA tests for this. There is a dedicated channel you can join. People are in there that can help you. They can talk to you. You can offer up help of your own. So please feel free to join QA and take part in there. And that's all I have for right now, so we'll open it up to questions.
I'll ask Richard, who did the Mattermost integration. What was sort of the hardest thing to get started with GitLab QA for you?
Can't hear you, Richard.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I've got a mute of a microphone and a mute on it. Sorry. Anyway, I would say the initial thing was understanding the separation between GitLab QA, the thing that orchestrates environments, and GitLab QA, the suite of tests. I mean, with hindsight, having this training material available to me then would have been perfect. I've been nodding along as I've been watching. It's really good. Yeah, but yeah, the initial difficulty was just in terms of just knowing where to start. And we're making inroads on improving that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I guess to quote Pablo, I guess crickets 1, crickets 2, crickets 3. Doesn't look like there are any more questions. As we said, join the QA channel in Slack if you do find any questions that you may have. And thanks for watching.
Thanks, Ian. Good work.
Thank you.